Hey, welcome back, everyone. Episode 12 here with Cam and Joe.
Yeah.
And today, we're going to be talking about being open-minded and why that is important. How you feeling, Joe? You seem you're real pumped up today. I like it.
I'm good, dude. So I've been, we had like a little Indian summer, 40s, which is really nice for this time of year. And so I've been sneaking away to there's this driving range that's like got heated stuff. And I literally played Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I got a new shaft for my driver. It's green. And
we're talking about golf people.
And I can hit it over 300 yards. It's awesome.
Hell yeah.
I'm in a really good mood. I hit it really good today. I just got it this earlier today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, that's a 300 yards. That's an epic number. Once you hit over that in golf, it's like completely changes things.
The thing is, it's stiffer shaft. It's got a lower trajectory and there's no spin. So all my garbagey like spin that would normally slice the ball, it like doesn't happen. So I get more straight, and it's 2 inches longer than my old shaft. So it's like essentially the same swing. And I didn't have to do anything extra. You know what I mean? It's like the technology's doing it.
Oh, nice.
I'll take it though.
Hell yeah. No, man, I'm doing good. Little guy was sick all weekend. So last night I got like 9 straight hours of sleep and it felt amazing.
You did? Because is he just knocked out because he's sick?
No, he was with his mom.
Oh,
he went to her house last night. So before that, I was getting like 3 hours of sleep a night for the last like 3 or 4 nights. So
because you're up with him.
Yeah.
What's that feel like? I feel like having a sick kid must feel awful, and then like having no control over it must feel doubly awful.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a little better now because when they're under 2, you just can't really like give them medication, or there's not a lot you can do. But at least we can give him like Tylenol and things like that, which helps a lot. And he was cool first couple of days. He was like, "Yeah, I'll take that medicine. It helps me feel better." And then like the last days with me on Monday, he was like, "I'm not taking that." Snot like shooting out of his nose, and I'm like, "This is gonna make your nose stop running." And he's like, "No."
Why didn't he want to take it? He just doesn't like taking pills.
Well, it's just liquids.
Dude, is it that gross
I don't know. He was
shit that they get at the pharmacy?
The same medicine he had before. It's just over the counter stuff.
Okay.
So I think I think it makes him like tired. And he's just tired of being sick. And he's like, "No, like I want to play." And I'm like, yeah, he goes for like, 20 minutes hardcore. And then he's like laid on the couch. Like, I'm like, you overdid it.
That's such a funny lesson to learn, especially when you're like, you're so like driven by your desires, and then it's like keeping you down. At least he like doesn't like being sick. You know what I mean? I feel like there are people who like get off on it because it's like they get a lot of attention when they're younger, and then they're like, "I'm sick, love me," but he's like, "Fuck this! I want to play. I don't want to be sick."
Yes, exactly. Well, and he's at the age too, being 3, like he just wants to play all day. So anything restricting that, he just gets mad. But yeah, I've been feeling good. Hopefully I don't catch it too. I've been pounding some of these like veggie super veggie shake things.
Oh, speaking of which, Sport Formula, one of our sponsors, cold pressed greens, live active enzymes that start digesting on your tongue. Little sponsor shout out there.
I love it. One thing I did, so to help him with this fever, which this comes into our topic today, being open-minded, is, I grew up in a family where my mom's a like registered nurse and did bedside for, I think like 10 or 11 years before moving into kind of like the management side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're very traditional when it comes to medicine and that sort of thing. And as I got older and been exploring kind of more alternative methods, like a lot that we've discussed in previous podcasts. One thing I've learned about is essential oils, and they're amazing.
Shit work, man.
Oh,
I'm like
100%.
Okay.
Like, I'll tell you about for him, and then I'll tell you one story that like 100% essential oils work. But there's a trick, and you can do this for adults or anyone. So if you use peppermint oil as the essential oil, it helps when you get really hot. So like being in Arizona, if you go outside, it's really hot, you could put a little bit like just like a drop and like rub it on the back of your knees and the back of your neck. And when you go out like walking or like playing sports or something outdoors when it's hot, like it helps keep your body cool. So one of the things, in addition to giving him, normal things you do for a kid like Tylenol, lukewarm baths, is for kids, you got to dilute the peppermint oil because it's a little too strong to put directly on their skin. So you can use like a carrier oil, which would be like coconut oil, which I didn't have that. I have olive oil. So you just, put a little olive oil, like a drop peppermint in there, mix around, and just rub it on the bottom of his feet.
How do you know where to rub it?
Knees. You can look online. They'll tell you.
Okay.
And then rubbing it on the back of his neck. So while the medicine's helping him internally, the peppermint oil is helping suck the heat out of your body from those main kind of points.
Where does this medicine come from? Like this knowledge? Is this like something that like Native Americans used or something? Or
I don't know if it's part of that or just people exploring. But there are books you can buy that will give you all the uses you can do for essential oils. I did read this book about this dude who studied like botany at Harvard, and during his summers between classes, he would go down to the Amazon. I think this was in the 50s, and study with one of the shamans that was part of the tribe. And they would just, it was the guy who wrote the book. It's called The Shaman's Apprentice. It's not very long, maybe like 200 pages, pretty eye-opening.
And this is a medical doctor who did this?
Yes. So, well, he's a doctor at Harvard. He's getting his degree there. And during his, the summers between classes, he would go down to the Amazon rainforest to this same tribe that I don't even know how he got in contact with them, but he went down there to study from the shamans at the tribe. And the shamans would pass down to the kids, like whoever was going to be the next shaman in the tribe. When that shaman passed away, would share all the knowledge with them. And then they would be the basically medicine man and heal everyone in the tribe when they got sick. Everything you could think of ailment that you could get, anything like heartburn, upset stomach, like diarrhea, like high blood pressure, anything. There was plants in the jungle. They knew every single one of them by sight and how to prepare them. And for you to like either eat or drink, like a liquid they would make from it, and it would cure everything.
That's crazy.
And he would sit there, and first he had to like learn the language. So after like, I think, about the second like summer he went down there, and he had this book and he was collecting the samples and like taking all his notes and everything. Well, he would take that stuff back to Harvard and like, discuss what he found. Well, guess what? The pharmaceutical companies are the ones who would take these. They would synthesize the plants.
Yes.
So then they could patent them. And that's where they make medicine. And they add a bunch of fucking bullshit into them. That's the patented crap that they made. So you can't copy, but really you don't need it.
They like they'll like hypercharge the active ingredient and then add like something that's like a delivery, like helps it deliver. There's
a lot of things that also cause side effects and all this stuff that you don't need, but it's just like those natural plants exist. But the problem is no kids want to take over for that shaman. So once he died, that was it. All that knowledge for that tribe was lost, and they had to start relying on like Western medicine doctors to come in to like help them.
Dude,
it was very fascinating, eye-opening book to realize like
what's it called?
The Shaman's Apprentice.
I'm gonna take a note on this.
It's a very quick read. Like somebody could knock it out in like a weekend.
It's funny how I'm like so open to so much stuff, but then like I'm like essential oils. That's where I draw the line. Like I don't know why that is, because like I'm totally down with like I was joking with Abby. I take like 14 supplements every day, not including like Adderall and like some other stuff that I take. And I was like, that's fucking nutty. But then I'm like, essential oils. I don't know about that. Like, I don't like.
Which is crazy to me because you're like, open to energy work, but not essential oils.
It's like, I'm like, that's quacky. And then it's like, but I have never really examined why. And I don't know why. Like, I'm in the theme of open-mindedness. Like, why do you think people draw lines at certain things?
I think just because they have patterns and behaviors and they've learned for those certain things. It's just like medicine, right? Like so many people, there's Eastern medicine and there's Western medicine, right? Like we were both, I would assume you two, like raised under like the Western medicine side of it, right?
Dude, I was like, every time I got sick, I got antibiotics, which come to learn is freaking terrible for you.
Yeah. But a lot of people, Western medicine, they're open to like acupuncture and herbs and some of these other remedies that are more plant-based that do work. The problem is I think, especially in America, so there's only 2 countries in the world that even allow pharmaceutical companies to run ads on television. Obviously, the United States is one of them, and I think New Zealand is the other. In all other countries in the world, it is against the law.
Should be.
So
ask your doctor about Zycor. Yes.
Same with the cost. If you look, the United States has the highest cost for a drug.
We actually subsidize all of the pharmaceutical like testing and trials, and our country, because it's so expensive, subsidizes the rest of the world's pharmacy needs, at least for the American companies, because
but then they pass the cost off to the Americans.
That's exactly
you could go buy literally the exact same medicine in Mexico
over the
cost
at the pharmacy without a prescription.
Yes. So it's crazy. But anyway, that'll get off on a very side tangent. My story to show you what made me 100% believer in essential oils. Because if you have like a stomach ache or something like that, or like cool you down faster, you could be like, well, maybe it's something else, right? Like that could just be coincidental. But essential oils, especially for lavender, works really well if you get burns. Like say you touch the oven, like pulling something out and the rack hits your hand or something and burns it, or like a hot pot and your finger will get like a blister. As soon as you get a burn, you can put lavender on it immediately. And some peppermint will help with the pain, but lavender will help with the swelling. So Sabrina was like cooking soup or something, boiling water, and she went to pour it from the pot into a bowl or something. And when she went to pour it, it splashed over, and I kid you not, all over her hand. The water was actively boiling all over the top of her hand and her wrist. Ugh. Now, this had happened to my sister years ago, like when we were in high school. And within like a minute, her burn was so bad, her skin literally peeled off, like on her hand in every area. So I was like, oh shit, like that's going to happen to Sabrina. But we immediately, this is the Western medicine. I was like, oh, I have this, oh my God, what's this called? It's basically like medical honey that you can put, it's called Meta Honey actually, that you can put on a burn. That's what we used to give to people in the emergency department to help them. So I have some just like, in case like burns happen at home or whatever. That was actually irritating it, not making it better. So immediately washed that off. And then we had talked to Jolene, who, does the energy work. And she was like, no, you got to put the lavender and the peppermint oil. We did that on there. I shit you not. She didn't get a single blister. And by the next day, the only way you could even tell she had a burn, because it was red in that area, like almost like a sunburn. And within like 3 days, all the redness was gone. There was no evidence at all. And her pain was reduced. She did still have she was like, it's hurting for like a few days. But after like 3 or 4 days, you couldn't even tell anything happened. And when my sister had that happen, it was like weeks of bandages and like all sorts of stuff. So that to me was like 100%. And anytime I've accidentally like touched a hot pot or like burn, like where my finger would be a blister, I put the essential oil on it and no blister comes or anything like that. I mean, you still have like the pain from the burn, but that usually goes away in a day or two.
Okay. So you have
made me
like
a believer.
Proof of concept. Yeah.
So what about you? Is there any, so with being open-minded, it can be something as simple as that, or I don't know if you in your personal life have had anything that's, whether it's like a business thing or anything. To me, when I say open-minded, I think like new knowledge or information comes along to where you take that in, you balance it with your current beliefs and thoughts, and then modify or adjust how you feel or think about that thing, right?
Yeah, I think because I'm looking back and, I'm massively growth minded now, and I had believed that I was my whole life until I like really learned what being growth minded is. And I think that's like the cornerstone of open mindedness. And I'm looking back and I'm going, man, I really was not an open-minded person until and it's like, I don't know when it happened. I think it's gradual, but you get to a point where you're like, I'm willing to try anything to achieve XYZ goal. And I think so I remember when I heard about Bitcoin, I was like, that's stupid. You're never going to make any money. I was completely closed-minded. And that was like in my mid-20s. I think, I think it just got to the point where I was like so open to trying new things. Law of attraction was like a big one. I think my life's had like an interesting trajectory. Like I was like always like a straight A student, like captain of every sport team I was on. So I like shot up really fast, and I was just like on this like wave of natural talent and just being like naturally intelligent and talented. Like I was unwilling to try new things because I like thought that like I was just the greatest, you know? And then if something came along that I was bad at, I was like, fuck that thing sucks. It's not me. Right. But that only goes so far, you know, like when I got to college, I freaking did horrible. Like you have to put in effort to actually do well in college. And so, but I still like didn't put in the extra effort. I just like figured out how to like pass. But that kind of was, I think was the beginning of me going, oh, okay. Yeah. Like I'm not like the greatest. And then, so I'm riding that wave. And then what winds up happening is my first college I failed out, and like my parents were like, you botched your life. And like, they were like, not like, okay, cool. You went out on your own this one time and you're young. Like, cool. You get a mulligan. Let's get you back out there. They were just like, good luck. And I was like, what do you mean? They were like, yeah, you figured it out on your own. So then I had like rocketed up, and then it was like plateau. And then it was just like, boom, like life is like, oh my God, you got to figure it out. And so I think trying to ride that for as long as I could with my natural ability, I eventually got to a point where I was like, okay, like I'm willing to try anything to be successful. And then it's a slow process of like, oh, let me try this thing. Oh, let me try this thing. And then I'm trying to think of when I became like really open to like kind of like weirder, like woo woo stuff, not weird, but just, you know, I guess alt norm. And then I really think just being on that, like, reading Mindset by Carol Dweck and realizing that I really wasn't growth minded is when I took a massive shift and just went, oh, I really just need to be open to new things. And I don't know, in a long soapboxy paradigm that I just spoke there, it was a slow burn, but now I'm like, it's funny though, because I was like, even like talking shit about essential oils, but like why do I draw the line? It's like I'm like 99%, but then there's one sliver where I'm like, fuck that. I'm like, no way. But it makes perfect sense. It's like they're synthesizing a natural ingredient. I take a ton of supplements. It's essentially that same type of ingredient, but synthesized in a oil that's even more dense in the healing properties.
Mm-hmm.
What was your like open-minded epiphany?
Well, first I want to comment on your story. I think your story is very important because I feel like that's how a lot of people arrive at that point to where they finally, usually in pain and things, right? Like an example for me is like chiropractors freak me out. I went one time the way they like put a lot of weight and pressure and like bam, like slam and crack you. That just freaks me out. Like it's going to break part of your bones. And then when I worked in the ED, we did have someone who came in and got their back broke. And we're like
from
paralyzed from the waist down. Yeah. So after that, I was like, I'm never doing that shit again. But when I hurt my back, it got so bad to the point like I couldn't even move. The pain was like unreal and desperation, right? So I think that's similar to your story, to where that was the key word, right? I think people are just like, oh yeah, it's good. Like I'm getting by, like I'm doing well, like everything. But it's not until you hit like a rock bottom or a huge point of desperation to where you're like, oh, fuck it. All right, I'll try anything. And then they'll try it and they'll be like, I feel like that's how people do a lot of alternative medicine ways, right? Like all the normal stuff didn't work for them. And they're like, I'll try anything like acupuncture or energy healing. But for me, a big thing is growing up in my family, very conservative and like a Republican kind of family. And for me, I was that way. And I used to be so argumentative with people, especially in high school, like, you know, debating politics 24/7. And then as I got older and I started like kind of getting into conspiracy things and stuff, and then just seeing, and I just started realizing like, you know, there's bad, shitty people on both sides for Democrats and Republicans. And I started like looking and I'm like, man, like they're actually all friends, like outside of when the cameras are off. It's like a game. Like, so it's just a way to divide us, right? Like we're arguing over left and right and Republican, Democrat, but in the end, it's like, I realize like it doesn't It doesn't matter. Like it's all that time spent arguing about this stuff. I'm like, it's stupid. And a lot of times
arguing amongst like your common man, right? It's like
yeah,
the the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, whatever. But it's like the haves and the have-nots essentially, and they keep all the have-nots busy arguing amongst themselves.
Yes. And then I realized like that's not even an important thing in life. Like there's so many other things I could be spending. And then when you start looking like our first episode, like the power of your voice and what you say and vibrational energy, and just spending so much time and effort and like reading about politics, talking about politics, arguing about politics. I'm just like, man, what a fucking waste of time. Especially when you see like, and I was in California. I remember another thing that for me happened, and I'm totally like 100% people can live the lifestyle they want to live. They can marry who they want to marry. But in California was one of the first states to really like have gay marriage on the ballot. Yep. And I forget what year that was that happened, but when it went to vote, it didn't pass. And hey, however you feel or not, like it went out to vote and it didn't pass. And the thing that bothered me was, I think they did another one. Like they just passed it anyway. It like went to like the California like appellate court or something, and they were just like, oh well, yeah, we don't agree with like the way it was voted. It's unconstitutional. We're going to change it and pass it. So in my mind, I'm like, well, that's just a perfect example of like, what the fuck is the point, right? Like you have an issue, it went to the voters voted the way, and then people didn't like the way it was voted, so they just changed it. So it's kind of those things that I'm just like, plus people get so angry and mad about it. Like how many times you argue with someone, no matter how many points they make, you're just like set in your mind that you're not going to change.
Yeah, that's one of the tough things about politics too. I remember I got in a really big argument with someone about, and I'm not stating an opinion here, but I think Trump is likely racist, possibly from his tweets and speeches and things like that. And I was just kind of like saying, it's interesting that there are people that are likely not, that he's not for, that are in his corner. I was talking about my friend's wife, her family's from Puerto Rico. And I'm like, she's a Trump supporter, but I find that odd considering, you know, where her family's origin is. And this girl like just hammered me with like all these facts. And I was like, like if we were in a debate, I would have lost the debate. Like, but it doesn't like change the fact that like I had that opinion. So like she felt like she won, and then I was just mad, but it didn't go anywhere. Like it didn't change anything. You know what I mean?
Like I'll give you another example. So this is part of the politics things, right? Like when I was in the military, I think Bush was president the whole time I was in. Maybe Barack Obama for a few months until I got out. But anyway, people will be like, oh, why do you like Bush? Like, why do you vote for him? And I'm like, oh, because he passed legislation to get us like updated weapons and body armor so we could be like better protected and fight overseas. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, yeah, he shouldn't have sent us over there to fight in the first fucking place. You know what I mean?
So it's like the army at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes sense though. You're like, okay, cool. He's taking care of us.
Yes. So that's how I would look at it then, is like they did something that's helping me directly. But as I got older and like learning more information, I'm like, the evidence for why we went over here, there was none. You know what I mean? And not to get like deep into politics and things because people get really upset, but just for me personally, for my personal growth, I just start thinking like, oh, you're right. It's like first level thinking is like, oh, he got us some body armor, so we're safe. So if we get shot, we'll be better protected. In the war, he made up lies to send us to go fight. So then I'm like, oh yeah, fuck that guy. Like he's not good. You know what I mean? So as you start seeing both sides are like that, and the career politicians and things, you're just like, they're not like, they don't care about everyday people. They just say whatever they need to say. And I mean, name a politician who's ever followed through on their campaign promises, right? Like
that was me in 8th grade. I promised that we were going to get another like vending machine or something, mm-hmm. and then like a field trip. I had no ability to do any of those things.
But did you even at least try?
I didn't have a budget or like.
Did you try to attempt to get those things to happen at least?
No, I didn't even try. I mean, I lost. That was my platform though. Brendan Petrando won. He was more popular than me, so I was running purely on a like very like derisive and like honest platform of change and improvement, and he was like just a popular kid that like got nominated and won, of course. What's funny about that is though is it's like what you're saying, like you get older and you become more open to new ideas, including like you become more open to ideas that you of your own that you may have dismissed. And so, you know, if we went back in time and had the same campaign, I'm assuming that someone with a good platform, well, who knows, but the younger you are, the more like ancillary your thinking is. So like that was purely based on popularity because they thought it would benefit them by being in a popular kid's orbit. Whereas maybe now someone votes because you're in the military and you're like, this is going to improve my life because I have better weaponry. So yeah, I think open-mindedness, the biggest thing you said there is being open to hearing others' opinions. Like just, I'm not saying I'm going to change my opinion, but if you like essential oils, I feel like my opinion's been changed a bunch now. But if you tell me something that I like didn't know or didn't believe, I'm not trying to change my opinion. But if you make a really good point, I'm going to be like, okay, that's a good point. Like I can't deny that.
And that's the point of this episode, is not to like be like, oh, if someone like convinces you, you should change your opinion. I don't mean that. I just mean you should be open to at least the evidence or information they're presenting you, and then take that to with what you already know and believe, and then reevaluate your stance or position and see if at least be open to the possibility that, right? Because you make decisions based on the information you have. But if all of a sudden you get more information, at least be open to like, oh, this does change how I feel. And it's okay to admit like, oh, well, I used to think this, but then as I learned more or whatever, like I realized like I'm on this side of it now. Like I'll give you another example. This is financially, and I'm sure
I love that because I was literally about to
give a financial example. I'm sure you have plenty of examples too. But for me, it's the same thing. Like growing up, my family is very much like, hey, stock market, like that, investing in stocks and bonds, like that's where you'll make money, right? So if all I ever did was focus on that and never was willing to like, when people presented me with more information, which helped me learn and grow, or being open-minded to other investment opportunities, then I wouldn't have, then I started getting into real estate and then started realizing, and then from there, like crypto, and then into, precious metals as well too. And then inside each of those, there's all sorts of crazy things. Because even real estate, my family would talk about that too. My grandfather was very into it, but it was more so of just like, you buy a property, you pay it off, then you buy another property, you pay it off. But that episode we did about all the other options, I didn't know any of that stuff's available, like the USDA loan. Again, it's like, as more information comes in order for you to learn and grow in any aspect of your life, I feel like you have to be open-minded. Do you have any?
I actually, speaking of the buy a house, pay it off, buy a house, pay it off, I was getting my haircut the other day, and fool I am for attempting to spread knowledge to someone who, you know, lady was a career hairdresser, was very nice, but just didn't have a lot of financial savvy. Good haircut, like wasn't cheap or anything, but she's just not like rolling in dough. So she's not like, that's just not one of her interests, right? She was talking about this family, her daughter's boyfriend's family, and they have like a combined salary over 200 grand, but they don't even have their house paid off yet. And I was like, well, yeah, but they probably have investments that are at a higher interest rate than their mortgage. So like, why would they pay off their house if they can make more money using their money elsewhere? And she was literally just like, what? Because she was talking about how, like, you know, me and my husband, you know, he had like a blue collar job. Nothing wrong with that. Like, dude, I think he probably did fine.
You just wrecked that lady's life. Like her mind is, she still can't figure out like what's happening.
But she was like, it like actually ruined our rapport. Like I felt like she was like mad at me. Like because
like you made her feel dumb or something.
I may have been projecting a little, but I think that's what happened. She wound up, because she was talking about how, you know, they don't make a lot of money, but you know, they raised 3 kids, and her kids had all had like really good careers, except for one who was like the black sheep. So they had like instilled really good values in their kids, but they like just weren't financially savvy people. She's like, yeah, we have our house paid off. Like, what's a fucking mortgage? Like, someone who has good money, good credit, 3%, let's say, let's call it 5%. You can get an investment making 7, 8, 9, 10. If this family had a 3% mortgage and they can make 6% doing something else, why would you pay off your fucking mortgage? Like, yeah. And so I was trying to explain that to her in a very simple way, but it just, there was that didn't exist. You know what I mean?
And I think that's a perfect example of like, because everyone has different like programming and beliefs and things that they've had growing up that was imprinted on them. And that's why they think the way they think. So by someone who's not open-minded, that information coming to them, you get defensive. And I used to be like defensive about things. If people would make, cause I feel like, I'm a smart guy and like I work hard and I feel like I usually like get things right the first time. So when I'm used to not be very good at like corrective feedback and things, I would get defensive. But as I've gotten older and more mature, I'm like, hey, like that person is trying to be helpful. Obviously, if they're not trying to be helpful and they're just trying to be a fucking asshole, then that's a different thing. But you know what I mean? As getting to that, I think that's probably where that was. Because that person just thought, right, that's the American dream. You work hard, you pay your house off, and then you retire, you're good. Mm-hmm. But like you just told that lady, she could have actually went and re-put a mortgage back on our house if she would have done it like 18 months ago and could have got 3% and then turn around and invest that money and be easily making double that and pay her
it was definitely like
mortgage payments and pocket the rest.
The defensiveness, because I'm glad you bring up a good point, because even now, and I know that you and I are both like thrive on constructive feedback, but when I get like really critical feedback, my initial reaction is to be like, fuck you. Like, what did you say to me? Mm-hmm. Like, how dare you? But then like you take a step back and you go, okay, you know what? I needed to hear that. It hurt my poor little heart, but I'm going to be better now. And that's the thing, like open-mindedness is also like another good example I was going to use is it's the old, I can't afford that versus how can I afford that? So one closes the mind, one opens the mind. It's a little shift, but for whatever reason, I think you hit it on the head, man. It's desperate times call for like new things, like trying of new things. So life sucks when you're suffering or when you're really poor or you think there's a huge gap between where you want to be and where you are. And then you're like, oh, fucking try anything. Like, oh, I saw a guy get paralyzed getting a chiropractor thing. You know what? Even if there's a 10% chance, if there's a 90% chance I feel better, I'm going to go get my back cracked.
Yeah, and I found someone who doesn't do the pop and crack. They have this little like pneumatic gun thing that like adjusts each bone individually. So it's way less invasive.
Really?
My back feels incredible and is stronger than ever. So,
is that the one where they like realign all your vertebrae with that little like pokey thing?
Kind of, except for it's almost like a piston, like but it has like a hard rubber nub on the end.
And then they just kind of like use it to like semi-forcefully realign and like every time they like get it to go like and train it to stay in place.
Yeah, so it's like basically just almost like a hammer, like like kind of just slightly adjusting you back into place.
It's automatic though? It's like a machine?
Yeah, it's like a trigger and everything. And you can set the intensities to it. So at that point I was desperate. I was like, I'm willing to do anything, man. At that point I was even willing to like, hey, you slam me on the table like a WWE move, like and he told me, he's like, hey, by 4 weeks, you'll be pain free. And by 3.5 weeks, I was pain free.
Do you do like a monthly, like top off? Like,
yeah. So now I'm down to just going once a month for the next 6 months to just.
That's a good doctor.
Make sure
everything's good.
Did he
make you pay one by one, or did you pay like in a big chunk at a time?
He gave the option, but if I paid a big chunk and I paid cash, so I got like a 20% discount.
Worth it.
Yeah. And then that involved physical therapy for like 3 months as well too. Like a lot of, which I described to you as a lot of like pretty intense, like heavy weighted working out as we got to there. It wasn't like rubber bands.
Strengthening those little
and, like,
weird muscles that never work out.
They were like one-legged squats and a lot of core strengthening and balancing with like these water bags on your shoulders and that sort of thing. So I liked it a lot.
But you would have, dude, because I'm telling you right now, unless I'm like in a desperate amount of pain, I'm not going, here's $3,000, whatever, making me feel better. And now you did it and it works because, you know,
Yeah.
I want to believe that everyone out there is trying to heal and do a good thing. And I think for the most part, most people have good intentions. But in my mind, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I would immediately be like, why do you need me to pay like 10 up front? Like, this is suspicious. Like, what's the shakedown, bro?
Well, and he told me, he said, hey, do you just want your pain fixed or do you want the problem fixed? And he showed me, like, in order to get your pain fixed, we got to do 4 weeks. This is what it costs. This is how many sessions going to take. If you want to also just like strengthen it, like a medium thing, like this would be the price. But he's like, if you want to be like healed and good to where when you're like old, you don't have any of these issues, then that's this tier.
Good for you, dude. You got to, you'll never like be at a loss investing in your health and wellness.
And that's the way I looked at
physical, dude.
I said, I don't want to be like, I'm thankfully in a situation to where I could pay out of pocket to afford that. I was like, this isn't a thing to skimp on and be a cheapskate. Like when it comes to your health, especially something important in your back. Like I was like, I don't want to be like 60 when I'm, you know, like a billionaire and be like, back
can't even enjoy it.
Yeah, because I was a dummy
pain.
And was like, I'm going to save a few $100 by not going for the extra sessions.
Dude, you see those old people at the grocery store and their like whole bodies like hunched over and their heads like down and they have the cart like this.
Yes.
Like, dude, every time I see that, I'm like, stand up straight. Take care of your back, dude.
Yes, 100%. So again, this is by being open-minded. You might think like, oh, none of these scenarios relate to me, but it could literally be in anything, relationships, and your business, like just with everything that's happened with COVID, like you have to be willing to be open to new ideas and adjust and change course, right? To be able to like make it through tough times, especially being a parent. Like I have one kid. I don't know like what's normal, what's not, you know, so I rely on people who are also parents that kids are a little older than me because they literally just went through those things and all the things they trialed and erred. And I listen to their advice and I think, oh, awesome. I have the mindset of like, hell yeah, I don't have to trial and error and like figure all this out. Like they've figured out the things that work and I'll try that first. And 9 times out of 10, that is what works.
That's the best part of open-mindedness is the let experts let you cut the line. Because a lot of people that are maybe a little less not growth-minded or closed-minded are like, I know better. I'm going to, you know what I mean? So, but then it's like you said, they're like, hey, this worked. You're like, cool. I will now save 6 days of trial and error. Like, let's cut the line. That's my favorite. I didn't even think that as and it 100% goes under open-mindedness, but that's something that I guess I would have never even like consciously thought of as in the open-minded category. I fucking love that. Like when I buy stuff on Amazon, just a totally like stupid, but like easy example. It's like I have a rule. It has to have my preferential is 3% 1-star reviews. If there's none other than 4, I'll have to go with a 4. But I'm like, these are people that like bought the product. Like, I'm not going to spend a ton of time like reading reviews, researching. I'm like, okay, cool, y'all. Here it is. Less than 3% think it's shitty. Cool, boom, done. Like, how much time are you saving there? Days, hours.
Exactly. And I think it's like some people will be like, will judge a book by its cover, and maybe that information that's being relayed to them, they just don't like that person for whatever. You know, if you're an older person, most older people don't want to take advice from someone younger than them. Is a good example.
What do you know?
Yeah. But I try to just listen to what someone's telling me. Like when someone tells me something, like, oh, yeah, you could do this with like invest in this company and they buy, you know, junked ships, like ocean ships and scrap them for metal and I'm getting a 10% return on my money. What? Oh, tell me more about that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
But a normal person would maybe if somebody's like, oh, I'm a stock master. Like I live in stocks all day. And they'll just be like, I'm not listening to that, which is fine. I mean, you do you, but by being open to those things. Oh, and the other point I was going to make is like part of manifesting and the universe bringing you stuff is it's going to bring it in ways you didn't even think of. And if you're completely closed-minded and not willing to even try or listen to other things, you're preventing that from happening. You're closing yourself off. You're putting up barriers. Do you have any examples that maybe would fall into that category?
Yeah, I mean, career-wise, like I never thought I would work in the staffing. I work in staffing, and I'd never like planned that. You know, it's like I feel like I've been pretty successful like in my career, and you just like gotta be. It's like however it's gonna come if you're open to it, and it's like you said, talking to someone's like, I make 10% off of this stock. Da 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 da. You're not like cool, and then you go buy 1,000 shares. You go, all right, I'm open to hearing about this. Like that's it. Just be open to. Like, okay, well, yeah, tell me more. So do your due diligence, right?
Exactly.
Like, if you're closed off, you're like, fuck that, right? Like me with Bitcoin, when this guy was like, yeah, about this digital currency, I was like, you're going to lose your money, you idiot. Like, okay, that's new. Tell me about that. Like, I didn't even ask to learn about it, right? Like, how about some cool knowledge? At the very least, I would have learned something, you know? And being open, the law of attraction, I think, is like the pivot point where you have to just be open because it's so out of the ordinary for what most human beings think is possible. There's no like actual, I'm going to call it hard science. So if you're someone who's like super dogmatic, it's very hard to shift. And just being a normal human growing up, like you don't learn that. It seems like bullshit. You can just think things and like be in a good mood and like take inspired action. Like, but if you're like, let's say, even if you're like, the law of attraction is the shit, I'm going to attract all this cool stuff. And then like this idea comes and you're like, nah, I don't want to do it that way. It's like, you just destroyed the creative process.
100%.
Like, you don't get to decide how you do it. You are given the best thing and you have to be open to it. Like, yeah. I didn't do it. I was never going to buy XRP. And like, after you and I talking about it for like a few weeks and me doing a ton of research, now I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make a fuckload of money off of that. Like, I know it. But like, one, I didn't blindly accept it, but two, I was super open to hearing more about it.
And I love the point that you made as far as ideas. Like, ideas will come to people all the time for like a business or something like that, right? They've been thinking like, oh, you know, like God, universe, like help me. Like I want to make more money financially or whatever. And just some weird idea will come to them, right? And a lot of people, I think, maybe won't be open to that. Even if it sounds so dumb. Look at the guy who did the pet rock. What do you make, like a couple $1 million selling those? And again, who would even, or the fidget spinners, you know what I mean? So just ideas can come to you, or maybe for a business, you think like, I know nothing about that. But as you start getting into it and doing it, all of a sudden you realize like, oh, there's aspects of that you are good at, and you end up being very successful. But if you weren't open to those ideas, then it, you know.
I think part of the open-mindedness is also you're open to take the step. And so a lot of times, you know, how many businesses started as, you know, oh, I want to start my like uncle's brother. Is that like a second uncle? Whatever. My uncle's brother wound up becoming wildly successful with like a corporate cleaning company. Never in his ever fucking wanted to do that. He was like a business guy working in like some completely different field. And then like the opportunity just like presented itself to him. And he was like, yeah, okay, let's see how this plays out. It was like a very casual thing and it like blew up. But if he was like, where was I going with that? But it's just, I think the business actually started as something else. He was like a silent partner. And then like, so he was open enough to like take that step, and then was like, okay, I'm not going to do anything else. And then some of the other partners fell off. So now just because he was willing to take that step, he winds up like having to own the business and run it. And he's like, well, shit, now I got to make this thing successful. So boom, right there. Right. So like, if you take that first step, let's say you get this inspired idea. So let's say the pet rock guy, let's say his first idea was like, I don't know, he wanted to make like a rock that you could like a rock tumbling kit. And then he starts like he's like, well, that's a weird idea, but like, I'm open to it. And he starts the process and he's like, I don't know, this sucks. I don't like rock tumbling, but I really do think there's a lot of market for selling people rocks, calling it a pet rock. I think the people really need companionship. It's fun and it's kitschy. So like the idea can warp itself into something completely different just by him being open to that first idea, which was like the home tumbling kit.
Exactly. That, like you said, who knows if that's where he started, but that just led them down the path. And you get started on that path because you were open-minded, and that path led you eventually to something that you were looking for, something great.
I wonder if that's how it goes for a lot of things. I think some people get so laser focused on one idea that they just go. But I think being open in all things, you have to be open to the pivots as well. So starting as a, maybe all of a sudden, like, so we have a podcast, but like, I don't know, maybe it turns into something else. And that is like something where you like even more and is even more successful. Of course, we're going to take that fork in the road.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a time where like maybe Abby or a friend was going to invite you somewhere to eat and you were just like, I'm not feeling that, or like an activity to go do that you're like, and you just went and did it. And then you turn out to be like, oh, this food was actually really good. Or I did enjoy doing that activity.
Yeah, all the time. Cause I'm like, don't want to do anything ever, but I'm like obsessed with, if I give my word, I don't like if I say I'm going to do something, even if I would rather like drown myself, I'll go, right. Or I'll follow through just cause that's like a big thing. And I'd say vast majority of the time, it'll be something will be fun. I'll leave in a better mood. I'll meet a cool person. Just there's always like the difference between sitting at home and watching TV and going and doing something new. There's, as long as you're open, right? Something cool is going to happen.
I'll give you two quick examples, and then we can wrap it up here since we're getting close on time. Before we moved out of California, we had a new neighbor that moved next to us, and he was Afghani, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like you guys, like let's go, like couples dinner or whatever, right? Like him and his wife and me and mine, and like I want to take you guys to this restaurant in town, like an Afghan restaurant." And I'm like, "Yeah, cool. Like we'll try it." The food was amazing, and like after we went with them, we went on our own to go eat there like several times before we ended up moving.
What kind of food is it? Like, what's the cuisine like?
It was like a lot of like kebabs, like meat, or like if you've ever been to the kind of Brazilian style restaurant where they like slice the meat there in front of you. And then I remember there was like this eggplant kind of like bread dip that came as an appetizer that we ordered. It was so fired, like delicious. And then of course this food can get spicy if you want to get stuff on the side, which he was a good host. He was like, "Hey, I love it like this, but you should maybe ask for that on the side so you can like, put as much as you want so it doesn't like melt your face off." But he had these Afghan watermelons. Like Sabrina used to be allergic to watermelon, which energy work got that fixed for her. But at the time, these Afghan watermelons, they were like more elongated, and they were kind of yellow color on the outside. Amazing. They tasted so good, like way better than a regular watermelon.
Like sweeter, or like
yeah,
it was different?
It was just really like sweet.
I love watermelon. It's my favorite fruit.
Well, if you ever get a chance, you got to get an Afghan watermelon.
I mean, I have to.
Yeah. So that's an example. And then, we liked going to the arcade sometimes, like as adults, we go and we went to a place and they had pinball machines we were playing, and there was a sign on the wall that was like league every Tuesday night. So we're like, "Hey, F it, let's go try that." And we ended up joining a pinball league, and we ended up like playing a lot and competing. And Sabrina competed for like the state championships in Arizona, and we made a lot of friends. But I would have never thought it would have ever even went to that, right? When we were just like, fuck it, we'll try it. So that's what I mean. Like just being open-minded to anything, like activities or food or like ideas, it can change everything.
One of my biggest, I know you have another example, but I wanted to throw this in because I was thinking about it before. When I was in the single world, it might not be my biggest red flag, but it's got to be like top 5, maybe even top 3, is picky eaters. In my mind,
my food can't touch the other food.
I only eat like chicken fingers and celery and this. It's like, it's such a...
My son has a more diverse palate than you.
Dude, right? Oh my God. And then I really think that's a function of parents not being like, no, you're going to try this, just try it. Anyway, though, someone gets this. It's like a weird neurosis. Like, I automatically assume people that are really picky with their food are like very neurotic or like very picky with other things.
Mm-hmm.
And something that, I hadn't actively thought about, like, that's so effing close-minded. Like, we will live our entire lives. One of the easiest things in the world to be open-minded in, you have to eat 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, is food. You can try a million different foods in your life, right? And like, to be so closed off to that, that's like the worst. The worst.
And there's so many, there'll be times, obviously, maybe more times than not, that you won't like it. But what about the times you do like it and you find something that's a new favorite you didn't know? When I was deployed in Iraq, I tried the Iraqi food, people, street vendors and things like that. It blew my fucking guts out. Like, bad, but hey, at least I gave it a shot, gave me like vomiting, diarrhea for 3 days straight. And I don't think it was because the food was bad.
I wonder if you were just getting poisoned.
No, it wasn't intentional. Like, we would see how they prepare, like, they just, they're like butchering the like goat there right out on the street. It's like 120. There's like flies all over it. And there's like,
you don't have like,
they're like cooking it on a pan that they've been using for like 10 years to cook that they probably never washed. So it's things like that, but it tasted good. It just didn't set. Plus, I'm not used to eating that kind of food, right? It's like when you go to Mexico.
You probably would have built like an immunity to it. Your biome would have had to readjust.
They're like, don't drink the water when you go to Mexico. Well, it's just the minerals and things. It's so mineral heavy. Like, our bodies are not used to that as Americans. So that's why we get like Montezuma's revenge. But if you're born there, your body's used to that stuff. So
a little diarrhea.
Yeah.
What was your last example?
I didn't have any more. That was just those two.
You had two, I thought.
It was the
and then the
Afghan restaurant and the pinball. So,
nice.
Well, do you have any words of wisdom or final takeaway?
Yeah, I do. I think open-mindedness is vitally important to be successful. I think you can definitely follow like whatever traditional or pre-written path there is and be successful. There's a lot of ways to win. There's a lot of ways to succeed in life. And to each their own, each one can seem conventional and unconventional, right? Like, if you come from a family of people that are business people, it may be unconventional for them if you want to be an artist. But if you come from a family of artists, they might be like, why the fuck would you want to be a business person? So it's like, write your own story. I just think the key with open-mindedness is how fast do you want to get ahead? Because if you're open, you're going to get ahead more quickly. And that's, I think, the most important thing, at least for me. Like, I want to get there and enjoy it. I don't want to like grind it out and then, I'm 65 and then I can like retire with my whatever. I don't know. What do you need? Like $2 million to like live off of and just like slowly whittle down before you die.
Be like this at the grocery store pushing your cart because your back's hurting from all those years.
Because you think chiropractic
hard
is bullshit.
Yeah. No, similar to what you're saying. If you look at all the companies that succeed and do really well when times change and things, it's because they were open and made quick adjustments and changes, right? It's just like, look what happened with Toys R Us. Toys R Us was not willing to change their business model of what they did, and they went out of business and died. Just like Circuit City, right? Best Buy was willing to go online and they survived. Circuit City was not, and they died. So I think that would be my final takeaway: is being open is important for all aspects of your life, and it's important for growth. If you're not willing to be open and try new things, and you're not going to grow as a person. So,
well said.
Well, that was episode 12. We really appreciate everyone listening. Please, leave comments down below if you're on YouTube. We appreciate every platform that everyone listens to us on, and please subscribe and hit the like button as well. And we will see you next week for episode 13.
Thanks, guys. Take care.